أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So today my topic is called Seeking Beneficial Knowledge in the Age of Information Overload. And basically the reason I chose this topic is due to my own personal experiences using the internet as a means to seeking knowledge. So basically, I remember in the past, when I was using social media, I came across an insightful post by a Muslim personality. And back then, I used to use social media for just like everybody else for socializing. But anyways, that post piqued my interest in increasing my Islamic knowledge. So what I did was I started following that sheikh and following his posts one at a time. And during this process, I was exposed to more and more different Muslim personalities. And so I started following them as well. I did the same thing for YouTube, where I started subscribing to a lot of different channels like TED Talks and street dawah videos. So as time went by, I started to incorporate more and more information sources in my life. But what basically ended up happening was that in incorporating a lot of these information sources, I came across this scenario often where I would be using my phone and scrolling post after post. And basically, the first post would be something about Islamic finance, and then another post about the importance of establishing khilafah. And then you would sprinkle some motivational posts in between, and then a post about Islamic history and so on. So as you can see, the topics that I was learning about was random and completely all over the place. And basically, at that time, I actually felt like I was learning a lot, but it didn't take me long to realize that this was nothing more than the Dunning-Kruger effect, where even a small amount of knowledge makes us overconfident in our abilities. Basically, the reason why this usually happens is because we don't have sufficiently deep knowledge in a certain field to know the limits of our knowledge. So actually, Brother Omar Usman, who is the founding member of MuslimMatters.org and Kalam Institute, described my situation beautifully in a blog post where he says, "Think about your social media feeds. Say you follow 10 Muslim scholars across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Over the course of a normal day, you might digest 30 to 50 Islamic messages, quotes, motivational sayings, scrolling past a video, and so on. At the end of the day, it will feel like you consumed a lot of religious content. In reality, you only got a few superficial nuggets. They might have been motivational, they may have even been valuable, and they may have even improved your life a little bit. But you did not actually learn something at a deeper level. After a year of doing this, the foundational level of knowledge you are at Islamically will not have changed if this is the only information you consume." Now, one might object, what about this talk? Aren't you also watching this on Facebook? Now, let's go back to his quote. In the last sentence, he says, "The level of knowledge you are at Islamically will not have changed if this is the only information you consume." So basically, if you have a knowledge portfolio, this should not constitute the entirety of it. So it should basically make up a small percentage instead. Now, there's no doubt that the latest technologies have benefited us greatly. For example, they've greatly increased our options when it comes to seeking Islamic knowledge, to the point where even during this pandemic, you're able to watch this video from the comfort of your homes. However, they also come with their own set of disadvantages. According to the comedian James Veitch, the internet gave us access to everything, but it also gave everything access to us. So just like how the invention of the telephone allowed us to contact anyone, it also allowed anyone to contact us. And this includes people we know as well as people we don't know, like spam callers. So basically, rapid technological changes have transformed the way in which we seek knowledge. In Brother Omar Usman's book, The Fiqh of Social Media, he says that these changes have been so rapid that we have not had a chance to pause and collect our thoughts. We have not properly grappled with how to use them in a way that lets us utilize their benefits while also avoiding their harmful consequences. So basically, in adopting these shiny new technologies, we've definitely benefited, but we've also inadvertently allowed more information into our lives than is beneficial for us. From our news feeds to our emails to our notifications to the websites we visit. The information we consume on a daily basis is a mixture of high quality, low quality, good, bad, insightful, misleading, beneficial, and not beneficial. So, in other words, the problem is that without us even realizing it, we're consuming a lot of knowledge which does not benefit. Okay, so now what is knowledge which does not benefit? And what did the Prophet ﷺ say about it? In Sahih Muslim, we find a supplication where he says, O Allah, I seek refuge in you from knowledge which does not benefit, from a heart that does not entertain the fear of Allah, from a soul that is not satisfied, and the supplication that is not answered. So as you can see, the Prophet ﷺ sought refuge from this kind of knowledge, which shows how serious we should be about avoiding it. Now, what are some examples of knowledge which does not benefit? Well, there are, of course, the obvious ones like things that are haram or things like gossiping, backbiting. It also includes things that are pointless, like what your friend's friend ate for dinner last night. But most interestingly, according to the Salaf, it also includes Islamic knowledge that you do not act upon. Now, think about the amount of information we consume in a single internet browsing session. How much of it is beneficial? How much of it do we even act upon, let alone retain? So you can see we're consuming more content than before, but it's not benefiting us. Now, what are the effects of knowledge which does not benefit, besides being a waste of your time and attention? And can't we just scroll past it? According to a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, narrated Abu Musa, Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, the example of a good companion who sits with you in comparison with a bad one is like that of the musk seller and the blacksmith's bellows or furnace. From the first, you would either buy musk or enjoy its good smell, while the bellows would either burn your clothes or your house, or you get a bad, nasty smell thereof. So basically you can see just by you being around the musk seller and not even buying any perfume from him, you benefit from the good smell, and vice versa for the blacksmith. In another hadith which is found in At-Tirmidhi, Abu Huraira narrated that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, a man is upon the religion of his friend, so let one of you look at whom he befriends. This is a profound hadith because it shows that our very religion is being judged based on something that is external to us. This shows that we should not underestimate the influence of our external environment. But what does this have to do with information consumption? Again, quoting Brother Omar Osman, who we follow is the company we keep. It's all the accounts we follow and the people in our group chats. So what this basically means is that we should be choosing the information we consume as stringently as we choose our friends. And in so doing, we will be following the advice of the Prophet ﷺ in associating with good company and disassociating with from bad company. Okay, so what are some common sources of knowledge which does not benefit, or information overload? First up on our list, we have social media sites like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit. One thing we have to understand is that when something is free, it's because you're the product. And in the case of social media, it's your data and your attention to ads that is being monetized. People pay companies like Facebook because of the data they have on their customers, which allows them to show us targeted ads. So for example, it doesn't make sense to show an ad about meat to a vegetarian. So in order to maximize their profits, they need to increase the amount of time we spend on their platform so as to increase our exposure to ads. So they basically do this by using attention engineering, employing sophisticated algorithms that are designed to keep us hooked. Some of the ways they do this is by showing you controversial content, like maybe a post that's getting a lot of reactions and a lot of people debating in the comment section. So basically that's how you end up in the trap where you intended to spend 5 minutes but find yourself an hour later still scrolling and consuming content that isn't beneficial. Next up, we have content websites like BuzzFeed or Lifehacker. According to Dr. Cal Newport, who's the author of Deep Work and Digital Minimalism, Many people have the experience of visiting a content website for a specific purpose. Say, for example, going to a newspaper site to check the weather forecast, and then find themselves 30 minutes later still mindlessly following trails of links, skipping from one headline to another. I've definitely fallen into this trap many times myself, where I went for certain topic but ended up forgetting, jumping to so many topics that I forgot what I was there for in the first place. And people think that ads are the main problem with these websites, and I disagree. Actually, the main culprits are hyperlinks and clickbait thumbnails and titles. According to Nicholas Carr, who wrote the book The Shallows: What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, links don't just point us to related or supplemental works. They propel us toward them. They encourage us to dip in and out of a series of texts rather than devote sustained attention to any of them. Hyperlinks are designed to grab our attention. So basically, that's how you end up jumping from topic A, B, C, and D and not learning anything in the process. Next up, we have instant messaging, having too many WhatsApp groups. And the answer to how many WhatsApp groups should you be in is is less than the amount that you're currently in. They're definitely useful. I found them to be indispensable for networking, organizing events, and getting to know about important local news, such as local mosque arrangements during COVID. However, we have to understand that in large groups, a single notification can notify an entire group of 300. The message might be urgent, or it might be that you pick up the phone and realize and find out that the person has deleted the message. You know, that happens quite often. Luckily, the solution to this is simple. You can just put the group on mute and treat it as email. So instead of checking it every few moments, you can check it at the end of the day. Actually, I struggle with this myself. Even though I put the group on mute, I actually still find myself checking it throughout the day. But yeah, it's still something to keep in mind. Next up, we have email. So over the course of our internet usage, we might end up subscribing to hundreds of different newsletters. These bypass your spam folder and go straight into your inbox. Now, this might either be a big problem or not, depending on whether you are an inbox zero type of person. So an inbox zero type of person would always try to keep their email inbox at zero. So for them, this will be a problem because they would keep on checking their email. If you're not, then the problem is less prominent. And luckily, some mail providers like Gmail are able to smartly categorize your email so you don't get notifications for marketing related emails. But still, regardless of who you are, this is one of the sources from which you can get overloaded. So what can we do about it? First up, we have what we call the digital declutter. I got this from Dr. Cal Newport from Digital Minimalism. The misconception when people see the word declutter is they think is the process of removing things one by one from their lives. However, according to Cal Newport, we need to move beyond tweaks and instead rebuild our relationship with technology from scratch, using our deeply held values as a foundation. So basically, Cal Newport has given us a formula, and that formula is that instead of saying no to things, you need to decide what you want to say yes to, and you use your deeply held values as a starting point. So you would ask yourself deeply personal questions like, what do I value? What do I want to learn? And based only on that, introduce things into your life. Now, since this still sounds a bit confusing, let's apply this principle. Now, applying this principle to Facebook, basically what you would do is, instead of unfollowing your friends one by one, what you would do is unfollow everyone and then ask yourself these deeply personal questions. So maybe you can take out a piece of paper and ask yourself, what do you value? And based on that, start following only those who will give you the most maximally beneficial people who will bring you closer to your values. The key word here is unfollow, not unfriend, because if you unfriend, they'll obviously get to know about it. If you unfollow, they won't know. Next, let's apply it to YouTube, which is actually my personal biggest weakness, because these days even Islamic channels use clickbait thumbnails and titles. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you could also get baited by it. For example, I've seen titles like Muhammad hijab exposed, or how to get high in a halal way, Wim Hof method. Anyways, so how can we use it in a way that maximizes its benefits while sidestepping its harms? Brother Adil told me how he went through Yasir Qadhi's entire playlist on YouTube. Notice how he didn't jump from video to video, but rather stuck with a single series all the way through. You can do the same thing and prepare some video playlists beforehand and focus entirely on those. Basically, you want to be the one that decides what you are going to watch instead of the other way around. But what usually happens is that we end up on the recommendations page of YouTube, and YouTube becomes the one that decides what we are going to watch. Personally, for me, this was a big problem, so I actually installed a Chrome extension called Distraction Free Tube, and basically it completely hides the recommendations page and the recommendations sidebar. Um, Actually, I can actually sort of show you, but it's in dark mode, so you can't really see. But basically, there's supposed to be a lot of videos and clickbait right here. Yeah. Anyways, during this declutter process, there's something we should keep in mind, that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So, for example, for me, decluttering my newsfeed wasn't enough because I'd still reach for my phone whenever I was bored and aimlessly scroll. So what I did was delete the social media apps from my phone, but keep it on my desktop. But the formula, the principle remains the same. For example, a person might value their friends and they might want to keep up their friendship. So what they might do is to ask themselves, what's the best way in which I can do this? Is liking their post more beneficial, or giving them a call? So only you can answer these questions. Second up on our list, we have consume high quality information. So the reason why we end up overloading ourselves with so much information in the first place is because of something called FOMO, which is called the fear of missing out. So we don't want to miss out on any valuable information, so we end up following and subscribing to hundreds of newsletters, channels, podcasts, social media pages, and so on. But what we don't realize is that acquiring this information comes at a cost, and that cost is our time and attention. For example, in following a social media page, you might come across one nugget of wisdom one useful post out of 10. And so basically this means that you've used up 10 units of attention in exchange for one superficial nugget of wisdom, which I think everybody would agree is simply too high of a cost. It's just like how you could save $1 by spending hours going through offers and offers or discounts on your phone. But I think all of us would agree that at that point our time and attention is more valuable than saving that dollar. So our attitude towards information should be same. Don't introduce an information source into your life if it doesn't fulfill this criteria. So with this in mind, some of the most valuable information sources would be, number one, studying under a teacher or mentor like our pious predecessors. So even in this digital age, their example continues to be timeless. They will spend years studying under a single scholar, and I can attest to this as a software engineer, that every time, I've benefited way more under my seniors than I could have ever had if I had Googled or used or online courses. Second up on our list, we have following a structured curriculum. So basically, I've heard that the programs at Islamic Online University are really good, so it might be worth checking those out. Number three are books. Even in this day and age, it also includes ebooks. They continue to be one of the best ways to improve your knowledge. They're distraction free. There are no ads. There are no hyperlinks. Unlike online articles, you can find yourself easily immersed into them to the point where you can forget your surroundings. And that's something that rarely happens when you read short form online articles. And number four is obviously unstructured information, the internet basically. So prioritize your information sources accordingly, and inshallah, you will overcome your fear of missing out and won't feel inundated by excessive information. Number 3 on our list is set aside time for unstructured information. So you don't have to completely give it up. However, I want to stress that you still need to be very careful, because Facebook doesn't want you spending only 20 minutes on their platform. Finally, and this is actually more so a reminder from me, I was spending all this time researching different ways to combat information overload, that I realized that the only one who can truly protect us from knowledge which does not benefit is Allah. So again, going back to the dua I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, which is found in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ supplicates, O Allah, I seek refuge in you from knowledge which does not benefit, from a heart that does not entertain the fear of Allah, from a soul that is not satisfied, and the supplication that is not answered. In conclusion, I hope that you've gotten an awareness of how the technologies that we are using give us access to information, but also give information access to us. I hope that after this video you won't just continue scrolling, and that you will actually take some time to declutter your digital life, and also to constantly make the dua of the Prophet ﷺ in seeking refuge from knowledge which does not benefit, which is also a reminder to me. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.